Hey guys, unfortunately, I have to say that it looks like I'm gonna have to get rid of my Parabellum Armament AKARS mount, which is this gizmo right here. Okay. Um, Now, when I first decided to get a mount, I was looking for something that was really low profile, really lightweight, and something that was going to be what I thought really good for mounting a scope on. Okay. And so I did opt to get the Parabellum Armament AKARS mount. Now, it's true that it's very low profile and it's very lightweight because it essentially just replaces the current dust cover that you have for one that is designed to be used with the rail here. Okay, and for that, it's actually really decent. But it has a few, things that are, I would say problematic. First off, it does require that you replace the rear V-notch sight that comes standard with the AK. Okay, for this part here. And, for one thing, it's actually very difficult to be very accurate with it because basically the width of the rear V notch here is actually pretty wide. It's actually almost as wide as this is a Tapco handguard with a rail on top, and the width of this rail here is actually not that much wider than the V notch back here. So it's actually pretty wide. It's pretty difficult to be accurate with it. And not only that, but it's non-adjustable, and you cannot adjust it for range essentially, like you can with a standard AK. And like I said, it's just very difficult to be accurate with it. Now, initially, my first school of thought behind this was, well, I am basically designing this to be used with a scope. Being that this is an AK-74. I really wanted something that was going to be able to, reach out and hit something at about 500 meters or so. And so I wanted to be able to mount a scope. And because I was going to use a scope, I thought that if I were to replace the irons, it wasn't going to be a big deal anyway, because when it comes down to it, you're probably going to, use the scope over the iron sights themselves anyway. So, and I know there's that whole thing with optics going down. It's really more of a big deal when it comes to red dots, because they do run on batteries. So, even this, even though it does have illumination, by the way, this is a CMR, this is a Hilux CMR 1 to 4, range optic, and it's rated for about maximum range of about 500 meters or so. It does have illumination, and it does, require batteries for that. But if the batteries die, I mean, you still have the etch glass to, be able to aim with the reticle. So, and by the way, this is actually a really decent optic. It's a good 1 to 4 optic. It does not cost a whole lot of money, and it's actually very clear. And I really like the reticle a lot. And again, the fact that it does have illumination, it's really cool. And with these. With this mounting system and with these scope rings here, these are millet low profile 30 millimeter scope rings. As you guys can see here, it actually mounts very, very low. Right back here, I mean, it's just amazing, how tight that clearance is between, the scope and the rear part of the dust cover, where the rail actually fixes in. So, and for all those reasons, it is lightweight. Adding a scope itself, I mean, this thing weighs a little bit over 16 ounces, I believe, last I checked. And, adding that weight, what I really didn't want to do was add weight on with the rail itself. There's side mounts out there, and a lot of them work. But the problem is they're going to come out to about, 8 or 9 ounces themselves. All right. So, you're adding quite a bit of weight there. And plus, as you see here, I've got this bipod on here. This is a UTG Leapers bipod. Actually works really well. It's really solid. So it's actually a neat little bipod. Doesn't cost a whole lot of money. But yeah, and I did opt to get something really low profile. As you guys can see here, if I show this part, that this is basically a CAA cheek riser, and this is the 3/4 inch variety. Now, I did get it in a double pack because I wasn't sure what height I needed. They have them in a double pack for a 3/4 inch and a 1 1/4 inch cheek rise. I initially did use the 1 1/4 inch cheek riser, and that's great for an optic because it's just a little bit, it's a little bit higher than the irons. But when it came time to use the irons, I just was not able, to get a proper sight picture when it came to looking through the iron. So I did actually have to switch it back to the 3/4 inch. So, but all in all, good deal. But this, I mean, it's definitely a good cheek riser if you guys ever, are in need of one. This does not cost a whole lot of money. I think for both of them it was about $15, or you can get one for about 10. Last I checked. So definitely a really good, cheek riser. It does not cost a whole lot of money, and it's a lot more sturdy than you think. I mean, it's not moving anywhere really, and it just kind of fixes into these notches here in the stock. So definitely really decent. Now, for those reasons that I'd kind of listed, being lightweight, being low profile, the Parabellum AKARS mount was actually a really good option. This is where it becomes a problem, though, is, well, in short, last I took it to the range after mounting the CMR scope here, it really just didn't hold zero, from what I could tell. I mean, that's pretty much it. So kind of defeats the entire purpose. All the other points are, very good aspects of it, but without its ability to reliably hold zero, it kind of just doesn't matter. So, as far as the scope rings, I mean, these are really solid. There's no movement or play in the scope at all. It's not, moving or anything. And I was able to get some decent groups, but a lot of the times, I really just wasn't, and sometimes I was just missing the target completely. Let me just grab that target here real quick. This is one of the targets that I had from that day at the range that I remember actually, being able to group on. And as you can see here, there's some pretty decent groups, but they're not nothing really too spectacular, with the exception of this one group here. This is the best group that I had all day. With this, by the way, I don't remember if I mentioned, but this is an AK-74 here, so it's a little bit more accurate than the AK-47 or the AKM, if you will, whatever you guys want to call it. So, I mean, this right here, I mean, that's a decent group. That is about the size of a dime, okay, honestly. And let me see here. If I can just grab something. Okay, here we go. I got a penny. How's that? That'll work, right? So this is a penny, and that's the size of the grouping. This is at 50 meters, okay? So at 50 meters, I was able to produce a group that is actually very nice, okay? So actually 50 yards at that range, excuse me. So it was 50 yards. So, but regardless, I mean, that was a really decent group, and this is only with the optic at 4 times power. Now, 4 times power is really not that high of a scope zoom. It's just really not, and that's one of the other reasons why I'm not going to just change out the scope mount itself, but also probably the scope as well. But the point is, I had a really decent group here. Other groups, I mean, you can see they kind of opened up a little bit. And some of the groupings weren't even grouping at all. Sometimes I was just missing the target completely. So, and it has nothing to do with how I was shooting that day or anything. As you can see, again, I had a really decent group. And on top of that, I had actually brought another carbine that I had to the range that day, and I had zeroed that, both the irons and the red dot itself, within about a third, maybe a half the time that I spent at the range with this. And I could not get it to hold zero. It just was not holding for me, unfortunately. And, I know it's not the scope or the rings. So, now just for the record, now before I did get the CMR, I had another optic that is a lot less expensive. It was just a UTG Leapers 4 times, ACOG scope. And, say what you want about it. Now, it is not really, it's nothing I would really want to use seriously. But I actually did have this on there for a little bit until I got something else. And these are actually quick release UTG rings that I have on here. And you know what? This optic has held up on that mount, but it's a lot lighter. Okay, so I mean, I'm thinking that maybe that's the case here. Because this mount is actually designed to be very, very rigid and, not move. And it's, kind of just, it's basically positioned on this carbine, along the length of the top dust cover. And here's the thing. In my mind, it's really more of a Western ideology of being very rigid, to maintain accuracy, versus an Eastern ideology of the AK, which is to be very flexible. The AK, it does flex a lot. That's part of what makes it very reliable, is just the fact that it has very loose tolerances and it's very forgiving under stress. Okay, and I just don't think that that's the ideal method. There's some mounts out there, including the AKARS, that people swear by. They swear that it's worked out for them, and that's fine for other people. But for me personally, it just has not worked out. And so I feel like I have to put that information out there, just because. Now it may be because this optic itself, like I said, it weighs over a pound. And for the record, after shooting with this 1-4, 1-4 or even a 1-6, I think those are great options for something if you're looking at, like the nomenclature states, the CMR, the close to medium range. This is actually, they say it's designed for anything between 0 and 500 meters. And I'd say that that's about accurate. It's definitely doable, but I wouldn't say that it's necessarily ideal. Okay, I think, and definitely a 1-6 would be a better option even still. But again, those tend to be very heavy, and they also tend to be pretty expensive. So what I'm thinking about right now is actually just getting a 2-7, and I may end up getting a side mount rail just to put on there. And so basically, I have the 2-7, or I have the ability to quick release it and use my irons, and I'll be switching out this for the standard rear view notch, AK irons, so I can go back to that. Now, if you're talking about CQB is, taking off an optic really quick and, going to irons, is that really ideal? I would say no, and I also think that, using a 2x optic is even doable at closer ranges. It's not ideal, but it's doable, I would think. And not only that, one of the things about 1-4 or 1-6, they're kind of advertised as having the best all around, being able to have CQB ability while still having longer range, and that's partially true. But at the same time, if you really want to get into it, really I would say that there's nothing that really beats a red dot when it comes to closer ranges. Why? Because they're a little bit more forgiving as far as how you look through the optic with your sight picture, and realistically, even if I were to have this on 4 power, I mean, if you're talking about the difference between dialing this down back to 1 or taking a mount off completely, I mean, it's pretty much going to be about the same time frame. Okay, definitely. It's really not going to be that much of a difference as far as having a side mount. But those of you that don't know, the side mounts I'm talking about, they actually go on this side mount right here. Okay, the side mount rail, and they just attach to there, and they kind of just hang over the AK. So that's what I'm considering. It may or may not be final, but that's kind of what I'm leaning towards right now. So yeah, again, with either maybe a 2-7, 2-10, somewhere around that range. That's just kind of what I'm thinking about right now, but it's all subject to change in the future. But yeah, anyway, that's pretty much it. That was my whole thought behind everything. Kind of disappointed that it didn't hold up. I just want to put this out so that you guys, if you're considering getting one, just make sure that you're kind of taking all of this into consideration. And like I said, for some people it seemed to hold up. Some people that they just want to put a micro dot on, or like I said, even for me, it worked out as long as I had a lighter scope. And despite the fact that I am planning on putting something on a little bit lighter, the fact that it wouldn't hold up again with this, with this 1-4 that weighs about 16 ounces or so, it just does not. I don't have a whole lot of confidence myself in the system, and it's not something I really want to trust my life to. Okay, so for that reason, I'm just going to opt to get something else. But anyway, that's it for my video for today. Hope you guys, had fun watching. All right, hope you guys learned something. I hope I helped some of you out. Like, dislike, comment, subscribe, or not. Either way, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the future, all right? Later.